welcome to this week's edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline. I'm Mike Migliori, along with Chip Hayner, Smoking Jim Frazier, and Al Levine, the Talking Machine. We're going to start off a little bit differently tonight. We will get to our What's on Your Mind segment, but I'd like, on behalf of the rest of the crew here, to send my condolences, our condolences, to the Joe Paterno family. Joe Paterno, of course, died. Complications from lung cancer is the official story. Joe Paterno, in my opinion, is the greatest, not only the greatest football coach that's ever lived, but just a great, decent human being. He was a part of Penn State's coaching staff for 6 decades. He was the head coach for 46 years. During that time, he went to 37 bowl games, NCAA record, and he won 24 bowl games, another NCAA record. But in addition to just what he did, just winning, he created good athletes and good students and good, decent people. Joe Paterno graduated more athletes than any other football coach. More athletes that played for Joe Paterno went on to become professional football players than any other football coach. And in addition to that, they grew to be good people, good men. You never heard about Matt Millen in dogfights. You never heard about Franco Harris raping anybody in a bathroom, or Jack Ham beating up his wife. These kind of things that have come from other players, that have come from other schools, never happened with Paterno's players. All right, and he was just into making sure that his players graduated. And that's not a big deal for football players anymore. Mike Ditka, who played for Pitt, and of course there's a big rivalry between Pitt and Penn State, said the class is hard to define. He said class is hard to define, but once you see it, you remember it forever. And he said that Joe Paterno was the classiest coach that he ever saw. And as you know, I've talked a lot about Joe Paterno and a lot about the things that were going on with him. Todd Blackledge, who was a quarterback for Penn State and also an NFL quarterback, said that even though Paterno did have cancer and he was old, more than anything else, he died of a broken heart. And he said that a lot of people have played a part in that. And he's right. And I talked on here before about how the media would tear him down when they got the opportunity. Joe Paterno was a great football coach for a long time, but the media hated him because, first off, they could never find anything to put on him. They could never find anything he did wrong. He never violated any of the NCAA's rules. He had good recruiting practices, and all his players, again, his players graduated. And they couldn't stand that. They couldn't find a reason to tear this man down. And in addition to that, the local clowns that we have writing for the Post-Gazette and the Tribune Review also hated him because they blamed him for not playing, not reviving the Penn State-Pitt rivalry. Well, you know what? If you're a classy program like Penn State, why do you want to play Pitt? It's just another easy win on your schedule. So why do you even bother with that? All right, Joe Paterno was a great guy, and these men, these people like Ron Cook couldn't carry his jockstrap, and instead he's going to write stories about Paterno should have done this and Paterno should have done that. You know what? Joe Paterno did nothing wrong. Okay? If you're at work and you notice somebody that you work with is doing something illegal, you don't call the police and say, hey, somebody told me that somebody else did this, or he saw this, or he saw that. He never saw any first-hand knowledge, and he went to the people above him in his chain of command. Even though people like to talk about he owned Penn State, he didn't. He had people that he answered to, and he went to them and he told them what was going on. They chose to cover it up. Okay? And just recently, or not long ago, they wanted Joe Paterno to retire. They asked him to retire. He refused to retire. They didn't ask him to retire because he wasn't effective. They were still winning games, and they were still competing to be in the Big Ten championship. The reason I asked Joe Paterno to retire is because he would not tailor his version of what happened in that scandal, and in his testimony, he wouldn't change his testimony to match theirs. Well, they're all going to jail for perjury, and Joe Paterno was not going to be going to jail for perjury. So when they got an opportunity, they fired him over something that he didn't do. And when they got an opportunity, people like Ron Cook and Richard Rice from that scandalous rag out in Philadelphia, the Inquirer, they all decided they're going to tear Joe Paterno down, not for something that he did, but for something that somebody else did. And now, recently, yesterday, they write their obituaries for Joe Paterno. Oh, great coach this, great coach that. But there was this last part in this last chapter in his career. Well, the last chapter in Joe Paterno's career was that he was again challenging for the Big Ten title, and he had a good, successful football team, and he's the greatest football coach that ever lived, and he's a great human being. We didn't just lose a great football coach, we lost a national treasure. And guys, that's all I have to say on that. Chip, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? And I've got to second what Mike had to say. I do agree with him, and we're sadly going to miss people like Joe Paterno, and unfortunately in college athletics there aren't many people like him. But what's on my mind this week is we had a wonderful weekend of conference championship games in the NFL this week. And the two games that were played Sunday, they were two of the best games that I've seen all year. And one of the things that I've complained about before was the lack of defense in the NFL lately. And both these games were defensive struggles. They were great games to watch. They kept you on the edge of your seat till the very end. And all four teams played excellent defense. And it's a shame that two of the teams had to lose. But the fact that both Harbaughs lost, gave me a warm and fuzzy feeling inside. That's what's on my mind.
Well, Jim?
and good job, Chip. And I agree with you, Magic Mike. Joe Paterno will be missed. Who won't be missed is Bruce Arians. I took a lot of heat on several networks, including this one, when I said that Mike Tomlin was winning with Bill Cowher players. I said that Mike Tomlin is nothing more than a young Art Shell. And it's showing right now the lack of power that they've given this man. Listen, Bruce Arians finally spoke. He said he did not retire. His contract was not renewed, and Big Ben Roethlisberger's not happy about it. And they asked him who fired him. He says, you're going to have to ask the Steelers. It wasn't Mike Tomlin who fired him. Mike Tomlin was at his dad's funeral in Florida. Who fired him was Art Rooney II. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers, not only don't they have an offensive coordinator, they got a disgruntled quarterback, and they got a coach who's waiting on Mr. Rooney to tell him who to hire as his offensive coordinator. And it could be promoting somebody from within, which the whole ordeal about getting rid of Bruce Arians was because they wanted to take some of the power away from Big Ben. That'll never happen. This is Big Ben's football team. Well, correction, it's Bill Cowher's football team run by Big Ben, and whoever they promote as offensive coordinator will, again, listen to Big Ben. That's all I got to say.
Well, Al, I'm sure you've got something to say.
No comment. Oh.
Good job.
No, I do have a few.
Somebody write down the date.
Yeah, red letter day.
I must make it unanimous with what Mike said previously. That was a great 10 minutes of tribute to Joe Paterno. I really appreciate that. I have a lot of family and friends that have gone to Penn State. My daughter graduated from Penn State just a couple years ago, and I was on campus there, and I've had numerous relatives that all got their degrees, and they learned so much from just Joe Paterno outside of the coaching ranks that I got to just, ditto for what Mike said there. And it just goes through society like that. And so I'm very, sorrowed to hear something like that happen to Joe Paterno and dying of a broken heart. That is definitely the cause of that. Now, onto the sports. No Harbaugh Super Bowl. I'm also happy, like Chip is. But then a little off subject, what happened to the Pitt basketball team? Where did they go? They were supposed to have a top-ranked game on ESPN with Louisville, and it didn't happen. So, Pitt's having problems not only with football, but with basketball, like we've talked about so many times. Maybe it is a blessing they're leaving the Big East, because they'll probably be bottom dwellers in the ACC. And that's what's on my mind.
Thank you, Franco Harris.
Well, okay, Chip brought it up. It was conference championship weekend. San Francisco 49ers, Baltimore Ravens both eliminated. New York Giants will face the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl again. Last time it happened, New England went in undefeated. New York came in and beat them up pretty good. And with a kind of miraculous type catch, Eli Manning and his receivers kept the game alive and went ahead and beat New England for the first time that year.
Well, to tell you, to speak about Eli Manning in the game that he played on Sunday, Eli Manning, I think, gained a great measure of respect for the way he played that game on Sunday because he absolutely got beat up, and he didn't whine, he didn't complain, and he didn't light the scoreboard up with his statistics, but he hung in there and he did what he had to do for his team. He didn't whine, and he made the plays that it needed to be made, and if what would have happened to him on a street, that happened to him on that football field, people would have been arrested for assault. But I mean, he got absolutely beat up. San Francisco's defense, and I tip my hat to Eli Manning because a lot of quarterbacks would have packed it in after even half as many hits as he took that game, and he certainly did not. And he led his team to victory, and he should be commended for that.
And Chip is right. When Eli Manning is not chucking up a ton of interceptions, he is an elite quarterback. Don't forget, this is a team that needed the last win of the season to get into the playoffs, and now they're on absolute fire. I expect for them to win the Super Bowl this year. But my prediction was the San Francisco 49ers. I think Jim Harbaugh is the best coach to come into the National Football League since Jimmy Johnson. But the only problem Jim Harbaugh has is he devalued special teams. Ted Ginn Jr., the punt and kickoff return guy, got hurt a week ago, so he just threw anybody in to be a punt returner. And Williams was inexperienced in that job. 2 fumbles led to San Francisco losing the game instead of winning it very, very easily. Although I got a great deal of more respect for Jim Harbaugh, even though I carry him in the highest esteem. After the game, he refused to talk to the media. That's always good in my book. I love it.
But he could have given a little handshake there to Conklin, because there's a guy who's ready. Conklin got to be one of the greatest comeback kids as a coach, because every year he's ready to be fired. Then he comes out and wins, so the record's 9-7 or whatever. He gets in there to run a streak like we talk about. But here's the guy that surprised me with heart, Alex Smith. He was getting beat up left and right, and he still was out there slinging the ball, making yardage, and giving them a chance to win. And it's a shame that special teams did cost them the game.
Oh, special teams cost the Ravens the game against the Patriots, and it also cost San Francisco the game against New York. But the other person that I think really shined or whatever on Sunday was somebody that was maligned all week, and the press, everybody, all they talked about Sunday morning was, the Baltimore Ravens are never going to be able to win with Joe Flacco as the quarterback. He cannot win the big game, and the reason why the Ravens lost that game on Sunday had absolutely nothing to do with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco played a better game than Tom Brady did, and Tom Brady gets all the press. And, after watching the heart that he showed in that game and the way he played that game on Sunday, I think the Ravens are going to be a force to be dealt with, over the next couple of seasons. And they could be back there again next year.
The Ravens is an old team, but I agree with you. Flacco did a good job. In the last year of his contract, Flacco is a thief because he stole Al's mustache. But I tell you,
too.
But I like Flacco. I like the Ravens team. They're getting a little bit old, but I've always said, and you guys will have to agree, that Ray Lewis has to be considered one of the best, greatest players of all time. I think he's the greatest player of all time. Right after that game, Ed Reed refused to talk to the media, refused to do anything. Ray Lewis went into that locker room, talked to the team and talked to the media. When everybody was down on that kicker, Ray Lewis says, hey, we win as a team, we lose as a team. That's a Hall of Famer in my book.
Ray Lewis will be a first ballot Hall of Fame. There's no question about that.
Greatest of all time.
I don't know if he's the greatest of all time, but I will tell you this: he is. I'd say he's in the top
He has a
2
little
or 3
talent.
linebackers that have ever played the game.
He does have some talent, and he did give a nice speech with the even mentioned God, so I guess he's on the same page as Tebow there. So I mean, he did throw our father in there a few times. And then here's what I don't understand. You have this connection with Ray Lewis, the greatest linebacker in NFL history, but you didn't tell me that he's a great motivator by telling everybody this was his last game. He actually was hinting that it was his last game, because some of these guys, and even the kicker, was almost in tears when they interviewed him, because he said, I don't know what Ray's going to do after this. He thought he was retiring. And Ray quashed that rumor right off the bat. He said, I'm coming back.
One more year, huh, Magic Mike?
I'm sure there'll be more than one more year, Jim. I don't think Ray Lewis is going anywhere for a while. He did have an opportunity to put Brady out of the game, and he didn't quite handle it. It looked like Brady should have been hurt, but it turned out he just popped right back up from that. I'm not at all surprised that you're impressed with Ray Lewis going in and talking to this guy and talking to that guy, because if nothing else, he's definitely a Hall of Fame talker. And yeah, of course, he's one of the better linebackers that have played the game and will certainly go into the Hall of Fame. The people that will be attending the Super Bowl will probably be a little bit happy that he won't be there. I'm guessing nobody will be stabbed to death the night before the Super Bowl this year, but right now that remains to be seen.
Well, the limo drivers are going to be out some money because I'm sure he paid them a lot of money there. So.
But actually, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens had a great season, and Chip, you're right. Joe Flacco, he outperformed Tom Brady, first of all, and he outperformed everybody's expectations also. Absolutely. The Baltimore offense did not lose that game. No. Baltimore defense, well, they were playing probably the most prolific offense in the league, so you can't really blame them either. But they did not hold the Patriots down to well enough to allow their offense to catch up. But Flacco came out; he was a great passer in that game. He made some great decisions. It just didn't work out for them. Sometimes one team's going to win and one team's going to lose, no matter how good both teams play.
Did you think Lee Evans held the ball long enough for a touchdown?
Yes, I do. Yes, that was absolutely a touchdown, if you ask me. He held the ball long. He actually caught the ball and turned. Now they're saying, well, his foot didn't come down, but you know what? As far as I can see, as long as it's been said forever, if you have possession of the ball when you break the plane, doesn't matter what happens after that. He had possession of that ball in the end zone.
Well, in my opinion, and I beg to differ, is that when he caught that ball, his second foot didn't get down, and the referee immediately signaled it was an incomplete pass. And once it was called an incomplete pass, it becomes a non-reviewable play. So if they would have recalled it a reception, it could have been subject to scrutiny. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and when they interviewed Flacco and they've even interviewed Lee Evans, they didn't seem to have an issue with it. Flacco said they signaled incomplete, and he went to the huddle to go call the next play. It's up to everybody's opinion, but the referee made a decisive call at that moment on what he believed he saw, and one of the few times they didn't sit around and have a committee and decide after 10 minutes that we're going to call it an incomplete pass. I mean that. Being a referee, you're going to make mistakes, and if a mistake was made, I don't believe it was, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
And who cares what Flacco says about that play? He wasn't the one that dropped it and getting death threats.
Well, here's who I care about, Lee Evans. I didn't see him complain. Now, we see guys that are jumping around, throwing their hands over the catches that bounce off the ground. Not once did he go and say, I caught the ball, right? He went back to the huddle. So I got to go with Chip on that one.
Well, you got to think that Evans probably thought, well, I did catch that ball, but they're not going to change the call, and hell, we're in field goal range anyway. And
he didn't think that.
And being from Pittsburgh and my dislike for the Baltimore Ravens, it was kind of a little bit more sweet to see them choke twice, because on consecutive plays missing that field goal, I still kind of blink, and I think the picture of the game was watching the sideline pan of Terrell Suggs saying, "Oh my God," when he missed that field goal. But that's the way the game goes. Sometimes it comes down to that, and as the players have said, it wasn't that one play that caused them to lose the game. There was any number of plays that could have been, where they could have put the game away, and it didn't happen. But it is what it is, and they move on.
Well, next year, do you think Hines Ward makes that catch for the Ravens?
Well, is Ray Lewis coming here? Because that's the other rumor. We may need a linebacker, so he'll come here. Hines will go there. There's rumors about that, my friend.
I think if Hines Ward gets signed by the Ravens, he's going to have to hire come to practice in an armored car. You know,
They won't embrace
he's
him.
not the favorite son.
I
in
say
Baltimore.
there's a much better chance. Well, just like anybody else, isn't the favorite son until you sign him.
Yeah.
People become instantly popular when they put on that that other uniform.
I like to see him
But,
line up opposite T.O. in the arena ball.
That's not
Are you coaching?
a bad idea.
Are you the coach on that team?
Does Korea have an arena ball team?
Yeah, Terrell Owens brought it. But while we're on the subject of the NFL, I was reading an article today that kind of, I'd like other people's input in on this. But Brian Urlacher was interviewed today, and he talked about getting injections of painkillers to play football, even though that there were negative side effects later on in life for him. And we all know that that's been happening since the advent of football. But the one comment that I think needs to be addressed is that they talked about playing with the concussions, and he said in this article that if I get hit and I believe I'm concussed, I'm going to tell them I hurt my toe or my ankle, so that I can take a few plays to get my head together so that I can get back into the game. And, making a statement like that, I understand that the players want to play, and they know that if they say that they're concussed, they're out of the game and they can't play, they can't contribute for their teammates. But, should Roger Goodell do something about players making these kind of comments which go completely against what the NFL is trying to do as far as protecting the players and the effects of concussions, especially now that they're bringing somebody in because apparently the coaches on the sideline can't tell that the players have been concussed. For example, when James Harrison knocked out Colt McCoy, the coaches on the sideline didn't realize that he had just got beat into the ground and was completely dazed. Okay, so now that they're going to hire somebody to watch film to determine what the do you think that the NFL should address comments made like that by Brian Urlacher? That's my question to the panel.
Or are they being honest? If the player's being honest, then the league has a credibility issue because it's about the money, the wins, and all of this economic. Look at the NFL expanding like they do. I think it boils down to the money. And somebody said on this show, Smoking Jim, that it's like gladiators. They're pieces of meat. So you have to make a decision. Is that really true or not?
Or does the NFL have a right to protect the players from themselves?
Are they consistent is the question also when they do that. That's what I wonder. Because it looks like there's special treatment for certain players, from quarterbacks to whatever top players out there. And then the other guys, they don't really worry about them that much. Look at some of these big quarterbacks like Big Ben. They can get hit all the time like we complain as Steeler fans, but they do get hit a lot. And look at even Tebow. Look at he had face masks and everything else that they weren't calling. So there are some little discrepancies in how they call.
Well, you got to look at it like this. What does a top guy like Brian Urlacher make a year? Maybe $6-7 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you take, for example, Joey Porter. Joey Porter was one of the highest paid top all-pro linebackers in all of football. Never missed a game. Got into a fist fight before the Cleveland Brown game. So he was ineligible to play that game. He got kicked out of the stadium. And they put an unknown bench-warming linebacker in the game by the name of James Harrison. And Joey Porter never got his job back. That season he did, but they let Joey go because they knew what they had in James Harrison. So these guys will do anything to play because at that kind of salary, you're not going to make it at McDonald's. And these guys know that you could lose your job. That backup guy comes in and shines, and all of a sudden you don't have a job anymore. Just say as Hines Ward.
Well, and I mean, do the players have the right to openly defy the rules? I mean, if you're concussed, you're supposed to be out. I mean, that's what I think is more the issue here. And to be blatant about it, I mean, does the league have a responsibility to take some kind of an action?
If James Harrison says that or Stiller says that same thing, they get fined. That's a good point, Chip. They say something like that, they get fined. Brian Urlacher can say what he wants to. There's a bias against the Pittsburgh Steelers, isn't it, Magic?
There must be.
Well, that's the credibility
Actually,
issue.
the point that you're missing is that the reason you need to bring somebody in that knows how to deal with this kind of thing is because when you got somebody like Brian Urlacher that makes statements like that regularly, it's hard for you to know whether or not he's got brain damage because he's a moron to begin with. So you need to bring a specialist in to take a look and say, okay, yeah, this might be brain damage because everybody that's always around him doesn't see any difference. If he's dazed, knocked out, brain dead, he's always the same guy to them. So you need to bring somebody in that can say, they can make that judgment call.
But that's the same thing we've talked about. These guys causing concussions are receiving the concussions. So that's why they talk and act like that. Plus, this is a warrior type sport. You're supposed to show how tough you are, not that you're politically correct, or not that you think you have a concussion, or you think Joe on the end of the bench is concussed because he didn't know the plays. He doesn't know the playbook all the time anyhow. So that's part of the issue because he's had too many concussions. So that's the problem here. There isn't going to be anything consistent with it, and you're dealing with a violent sport. Unless you take the helmet off, or like I said, with a soft helmet, then you're going to have something different. Then you change the sport. So
as Jack Lambert used to say, put dresses on.
Put dresses on them.
Right.
And that's a good point, Al, because if you look at Ricky Williams in that Ravens game, if you guys seen him in the first half, he had a run around right in. And boy, did he lower the boom. He lowered his helmet. It was helmet to helmet against that safety trying to tackle him. And it was one of the most violent, but it'll never be called offensively. If a defensive guy would have done the same thing, it would have been a $75,000 fine.
And suspension.
It's kind of a surprise that Chip brought up Terrell Suggs and that he was actually saying that on the sideline, because that's the first time Terrell Suggs' name's been mentioned since early in that game. You talk about a guy that disappeared. Terrell Suggs was nowhere to be found in that football game.
Well, the theory is when they go away, he sort of disappears when they're away. So he played consistently in the away game.
He sure did.
But the rest of his teammates, they stood up. That was the New England game and the San Francisco game. Those were the most enjoyable games that I've watched all year this year. And me being a Steeler fan, I love my Steelers, but that was just great football. And if you're a football fan, how could you not love the way that those games were played on Sunday?
But Goodell's trying to take that violence out of the game. I love it.
And it was defense too. So
that's what it was all about.
The Giants-Niners game was the second best football game I saw this year. The Niners-Saints game the week before was definitely the best game I've seen this year.
I thought the Denver-Steelers game was pretty good.
I like the end. I like the results.
Come on. Hey, since you brought up Steelers there somehow, what about a guy last week on the show said that they needed $25 million to take off the cap?
Yeah.
All right. Now that's true. I told you it'd be like the James Neal thing the week before. But they're all talking about that $25 million.
And I don't believe it yet.
No, they're talking about it.
Well, they're they got to make some changes here, and these players are going. They're starting to talk
That's
about
exactly it. They want to get rid of some of these players, and they got to explain it to the fans by saying, well, we had to get rid of $25 million. Well, what happened? The $25 million, the cap just dropped by $25 million? They weren't over the cap last year?
That's right. It goes up every year.
That's right. That's right. But they're looking at Ferrier and Ward and Hampton and saying,
Aaron Smith.
We got no reason to keep these guys, except that the fans might come burn the building down. So they're trying to make their excuse for it.
I even heard on one of your favorite shows, Mike the Fan, they were bringing up about Brett Kiesel, that one of the guys, I forget which one it was, because like you say, a lot of that conversation is, we'll be kind. But he said that they got to get rid of him because he has a big contract. And Brett Kiesel had one of his best years. The beard was awesome. So there you go with the Fan again. So who knows?
Yeah, well, you know what? Talking about Brett Kiesel's best year is like talking about the most virtuous hooker down on Liberty Avenue. It's not that good.
As a Steeler fan, I thought it was pretty good. So, hey, I wanted to, since Chip was thrown out to you guys, what do you think? What do you think about Peyton Manning? They were quoting him today that he went in and everything seems so different. It doesn't seem, like the same place anymore. He's seeing coaches pack up and leave. He hasn't talked to the owner yet. He doesn't know where he's going to be with this, $28 million thing that they got to get settled by March. So Do you think they're going to get rid of him because he's actually not passing or playing like he wants to at this stage? He doesn't know what kind of shape he actually is in.
I think Peyton Manning's played his last game in an Indianapolis Colts uniform, and I think he's played his last game in the NFL. He's 3 neck surgeries within the last year, and they don't even know if by March the 8th, they're not even going to know then if he's going to be able to play. And what does he have left to accomplish? The guy's got more money than he can probably spend in his lifetime. He'll have tons of endorsement deals, and I don't see any reason why he would play, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he stole money this year. He was on injury reserve all year. They paid him all year long. I agree with you, Chip. I don't see them paying him $28 million. Plus, they got rid of everybody that was in his court. The head coach, the general manager, and his son. And now it looks like maybe Jim Tressel will get that head coaching job and bring in Oliver Luck.
Is that your inside little scoop?
He's getting a second interview.
He's going to have to get used to doing something, is paying his players less than he did in Ohio State.
Yeah, you have to actually have to coach. Peyton Manning, I think was one of the better quarterbacks that we've seen in the NFL in a very, very long time, maybe ever. I believe that he will play, or at least he will go to a team sometime next year. I don't know how often he will get in, or if he's even able to play. But some team will pay him to play there. It probably will not be the Indianapolis Colts, because the Indianapolis Colts owner, Robert Irsay, he's pretty good at getting rid of people.
Yeah.
In fact, he got rid of a whole city once.
Yes, he did. In the middle of the night. In the middle of the night.
So yeah, I don't think there's any kind of loyalty there as far as that goes. But somebody's going to want to pick up Peyton Manning and take a shot with him, just like other guys that have played beyond their years. The last few years that Warren Moon was in the league were not necessarily as good as the first few years that he was in the league. But still, Peyton Manning is he's a name, and he's a player that somebody will sign, just to, even if nothing else, to be alongside their young rookie quarterback or whatever.
Well, there are a number of NFL teams that have had trouble, getting people into the stadiums, because there's a number of teams, and one of them in our division, that haven't been able to televise a home game in the city because of the NFL blackout rules. So somebody could offer money. Only time will tell if he'll be able to play.
What about Pittsburgh West out in Arizona? That might be a fit if he's going to try to play. Go out there in the warm weather a little bit. Maybe that helps. Right? Got a great receiver.
Al Davis was alive. You'd see him in Raider black.
Well, I heard they might hire a coach, somebody named James Allen from Denver or something.
Wow, defense coordinator.
Yeah.
You sure it isn't Woody Allen?
Right. Same difference.
They said it's a 2-year deal, the standard
Just
contract.
because Al Davis is dead, don't believe he's not calling the shots.
Right.
Don't ever believe that.
And Magic Mike makes a good point, but I got to correct him a little bit. Peyton Manning's not the greatest that ever played. He's one of the greatest that ever played is Brett Favre.
Actually, I said he was one of the better ones. I didn't say he was the greatest.
Oh, okay.
I never called him Joe Montana. Ever.
And here, I got to go off subject
good
and change it since my man here is always talking about the greatest. We're a little bit remiss for last week. The greatest boxer of our era, Muhammad Ali, passed away. And we sort of missed that with all the conversation with football and all the local sports. But there was a true legend there, somebody that made himself into the greatest. Watched movies and videos of the greatest fighters.
He did what?
Watched movies.
No, I said, what you say about Ali? Did you say had a birthday or passed away?
He passed away.
No, he still. It was his birthday.
It was his birthday. They said on TV that he passed away the other day. So I'm like, how did that happen? Because I saw him. I stand corrected. I got crazy there for a
Maybe
second.
you don't know as much about brothers. Okay.
Nah, I missed that.
You don't like the Nation of Islam, huh?
No. You were too corrupt. Sorry, folks.
He did know that James Neal was playing that night, though.
Hold it, I thought I got a text here. No, the Penguins aren't playing till 8 o'clock.
That's right.
My mistake.
You might be getting a text from Muhammad Ali.
Hold it.
Dude, I'm still alive.
Hold it. He said, Alan, what are you doing here?
He might meet
That
you.
was our light humor moment there.
He might meet you in a parking lot and show you how dead he is.
That's true. That's true. Happy birthday.
If he'd meet anybody in a parking lot, it'd be Magic Mike.
You know he ain't coming to meet me because he's a draft dodger and a coward. Dead or not.
I knew that was coming.
First, he changed his religion to avoid one war. There must be another one coming up. He's going to die to get away from that. Is that what you're saying, Al?
Maybe. Well, this guy, I apologize.
You know what? Just to clear everything up, Muhammad Ali is still alive. Are you kidding me? Well, you know what? Muhammad Ali may be the greatest heavyweight ever. And, well, I don't know about Ray Lewis being the greatest anything ever, but one of the greatest shows on ice ever is right here in Pittsburgh now. The Pittsburgh Penguins, well, they went through a 6-game losing streak. We sat here and we told our viewers that the Penguins would turn it around, and they have. They're now on a 6-game winning streak, and they're just playing lights-out hockey. Guys, what do you think about what's going on there?
The way the Penguins have played in the last 6 games is the way that they're capable of playing, and they have absolutely turned it around. And Evgeny Malkin is making the loudest statement in the league for MVP. He's put the team on his back, and he's carrying them right now.
I agree with you there. That winning, we said, that cures almost everything. You don't hear any questions about captains. People are shooting. Look at Letang. The other thing we missed, Letang come back, 3 goals in 3 games. I mean, that's fantastic to come back from in the shape. He's flying up and down the ice. He's even leading charges up through the ice there on the offensive end. So the Penguins do have a great team, but they do have this problem with Sid, and it keeps coming up in the media. Now he's out in California with a neurological doctor to check his spine and everything else. But the team, you can't beat what they're doing. They do have a game tonight at 8 o'clock, though, Mike. So we'll have to see if they can get 7 in a row here.
And what is the latest, Magic, with Sidney Crosby?
I don't think, to be honest, I don't think anybody really knows. We have in Pittsburgh, we've got some great doctors that deal with concussions all the time. They're supposedly the top concussion doctors in the world. And Crosby's out in California, like Al said, talking to a chiropractor.
No, that was in
I guess,
Atlanta. The Atlanta was the chiropractor. This is actually a neurological guy, which we have them all here, like you said, in
Muhammad
Pittsburgh.
Ali's still alive, Al.
One mistake.
That's all
Sorry,
I'm
buddy.
telling
That
you.
was a
Muhammad Ali's still
whopper.
alive.
But I do know
Okay.
who he's seeing there.
So-
They called me on that one.
So they, you know,
Sorry.
who knows what they're, what's going on there. At this point, I guess you deal with that as it comes. But as far as what the Penguins are doing now, with or without Sidney Crosby, they have to be the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup. They've got to be the favorite to win the Stanley Cup right now. They're the hottest team in the league. I would like to, talking about hockey, I'd like to go back to a show that we had earlier where I mentioned that that the Washington Capitals replaced Bruce Boudreau with cement head Dale Hunter. And I told you that Dale Hunter would make his presence felt on that team. When Boudreau was there, Alexander Ovechkin won MVP, 2 scoring titles. Dale Hunter's here now. Alexander Ovechkin suspended for 3 games for headhunting and launching himself off his feet to try to hit Zbigniew Mikhailiuk. And I think that's a great turnaround. Hunter, you're doing an outstanding job. And because Ovechkin is now suspended for 3 games, he decided, well, he's not going to play in the All-Star game either, which could be good for Penguins fans because now they got to replace him. And James Neal, well, he's only been in the top of the goal scorers the entire season, so maybe he gets to squeeze in there along with Malkin and Chris Letang.
Jim asked a question about what's going on with Sidney Crosby, and I think really right now, worry about Sidney Crosby if and when he comes back, and I think what we need to really those the amazing athletes that we've got skating on the ice right now, and the Penguins as a team are great. They've got one of the best goaltenders in the league. And I think we should appreciate what we have instead of wishing for something that we don't know what's going to happen. And, and to be honest with you, I'm sure the players are tired of hearing about it, answering questions about it. I'm tired of hearing about it. You know what? If and when he comes back, we'll welcome him with open arms. But, that's if and when.
Well, I'll tell you also, in addition, now won't go as far as to say that Morgan's carrying the team on his back, because there are some other very good players, James Neal and Chris Kunitz on that line, and Marc-Andre Fleury, who I've always said is the best goalie in the league, and all the other Penguins are doing their job. The defense is amazing. Brooks Orpik apparently called them out after a particularly bad loss and screamed and carried on at them, and they came out and they have become twice as physical as they were earlier in the season. They've notched that up. They're banging people around. They're in fights all the time. They're a very physical team now, and they're a very talented team. But Evgeny Malkin is to me, the second most exciting player that I've ever seen play hockey, and I've been watching hockey all my life. And the first best exciting player that I've ever seen is signing his paycheck. So, the Penguins right now, they've got the guy who will probably be the MVP, probably be the scoring leader, and when you say he's carrying the team on his back, he should probably be forced to carry another player on his back during the games just to kind of even things out. And as far as you other teams out there, the other NHL teams that have to try to stop Malkin all the time, good luck, because there's only one way to stop him, and I got that right here. Okay, the only way you stop Evgeny Malkin is kryptonite. Okay, because he's Superman, you can't beat him, you need kryptonite. And that's what I've got to say about the Penguins. In fact, after this show, I may go down to Liberty Avenue and stand there for the next 6 months, because I want to have a good seat in June for the parade.
Are you going to be there when they unveil the Lemieux trophy or the Lemieux statue?
Of course,
that's
I'm
going
going
to
to
be there. Okay, we'll have to get some good pictures.
We'll get
for
some
the
video
show.
for the show.
That's a good idea.
And I hate to disagree with you, Magic Mike, because I rarely do, but the most exciting player I ever seen was Yager. But I never seen Lemieux in his prime, but I just can't imagine anybody being better than Yager.
Lemieux was. I like Yager myself. I told you what a good guy he was. He shouldn't have been the captain. So. But Lemieux was just unbelievable.
Lemieux was unbelievable, and I think even Lemieux eclipsed Wayne Gretzky, because Wayne Gretzky, if you look at the teams that he played on a team that was just loaded with Hall of Famers. And Lemieux, the first few years of his career, how he did the things that he did with the lack of talent that were on some of those teams, just spoke to the greatness that he had.
What you think of Yager?
As a player, Yager was a good player. I don't think Yager elevated himself to being a great player, because Yager never took a team to a championship, and I think, that as a player, you either make the people around you better and they rise to your level, and then they can win a championship. And I just didn't see that in Jaromir Yager. I mean, he was a very, very good player, and he gave some good years to the Penguins, and I appreciated that. But I don't believe that he achieved greatness.
He won the cup, didn't he?
So now
In his first 2 years, Mario won the cup, and he was a young boy that was on that team.
Now, see, I can't agree with you there, Chip. I think Yager was also a great player. He might be the third most exciting player that I've ever watched play. The things that he could do with the puck were amazing. He was big and he was fast, and he protected the puck like nobody else did. When he had the puck on his stick, nobody was taking it away from him. He was a great hockey player. In fact, Penguins fans since the early '80s now have been spoiled. We've had the greatest player in the game for a long time, whether it be Lemieux during his time, Yager during his period here after Lemieux, and either Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin or Marc-Andre Fleury, whichever you pick. We've had the greatest players here for a long time. So we're kind of jaded as far as that goes. Now, having the greatest player in a team sport doesn't always result in having the best team. But a lot of times in sports, particularly sports like basketball and hockey, one player can take over the game, and we've seen Lemieux and Yager and Malkin and Crosby all do that. So we've been lucky as far as that goes. But yeah, I think Jim's right. I think Yager was a great player. Made a bad choice in going to Philadelphia because now he's a Smenhead. But you know that for the time that he was there, and I think that most Penguin fans, even though they'll talk about hating him, and whatever, most Penguin fans that were watching the Penguins during that time do understand and do believe that he was one of the better players that the league's ever had.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm sure it's a question that I'm going to beat L to. Who do you guys think is the best black hockey player to ever play in the NHL?
Grant Fuhr.
Without a question.
Yeah.
Better than Brashear?
Yeah, Grant Fuhr was. I mean, you know, what did he win? Like four Stanley Cups?
4 or 5. You know,
At least 4. So.
So yeah, I mean, he was a great goalie. And you know, George Laraque's a good hockey player. While there's not been a lot of black hockey players as compared to other sports, of course, but you know, they're still professional hockey players, and a lot of them have had good careers.
Can't argue there. You brought up the
Who do you
best
think?
in us.
Who do you think was the
You
best
stole
white
my
basketball
thunder.
player ever, Ken?
Larry Bird, Bob Cousy,
Michael Jordan.
No, he just wanted to be.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Hey, did you see my man Mark Cuban's bidding on the Dodgers?
No, wow, I didn't know
Maybe
that.
we'll get to go out and see the Dodgers
That'd
play.
be nice.
Maybe he'll bring them to Pittsburgh. We got a good stadium with no team.
Great point, Mike.
getting on the subject of baseball, you notice, and we're not going to talk about the Pirates today because there's nothing to talk about. But you look at the big free agent signing this year, or today, and Prince Fielder signed for $214 million for 9 years. And
Wow.
he signed with Detroit, and I heard on the way over here that there's a no opt-out clause in that so he's guaranteed 9 years, $214 million. And I think Detroit made a huge mistake.
Wow, that's where his dad played, right?
Yeah, yes, it is. That was where his father played from 1990 to 1996, and he hit 245 home runs for the Tigers. And I mean, he's just if you saw him walking down the street, he doesn't look like an athlete. And his weight's going to catch up to him, and how many more years is he going to be, viable? But in the American League, I guess you could always sit him on the bench and have him go to bat 4 times a game, and he could DH. So it's not like playing in the National League where you have to have some fielding skills.
That's right. Well, I mean, the American League was the perfect spot for him. He probably coming out of Milwaukee, he knew that's where he was going.
They overpaid for him. There's just no question about that. I don't think he's worth that kind of
Can you
money.
imagine
None of them are
getting
worth
that much
what they
guaranteed money at that age? Whew.
For 9 years, how can he turn that down?
Oh, I mean, as an athlete,
Wow.
Right.
Somebody's out there. I couldn't write that. You signed my name to that contract.
What happened to a 5-year deal, especially like you're saying with his weight, and as he gets older, there, it's definitely going to take away from what his home run.
Well,
and
I
they want him for that.
saw the Giants made a big signing today, and they signed Tim Lincecum to a 2-year, $40 million contract, which, considering the environment in Major League Baseball, that was a smart signing because pitchers, they're not, you signing a pitcher to a long-term contract is an iffy proposition at best. So they've got him for 2 years, $40 million, and I mean, if he blows his elbow out halfway through, they're not as bad off as paying him $160 million over 5 or 6 years. So.
Are they still signing players from Japan? Isn't it?
They just did.
Yes, they did. They just the Rangers just signed somebody.
Lincecum got that contract based on his performance in one season, and it wasn't even last season. He had the one great season. He was not all that good last year. Definitely not worth $20 million a season.
Well, his first 3 years, he won 2 Cy Youngs and a World Series. So I mean, his first 3 seasons were pretty amazing for a young kid. And they say his throwing motion's awkward, and everybody's looking for him to throw out his shoulder and his elbow. But I mean, he's one of those unique athletes that what he does seems to work. But I think the point being, instead of throwing a lot of years on his contract, you sign him for 2 years. And if you get your 2 years out of him, the money's well spent, and you don't get burned by locking him into a 10-year contract, like the Yankees signed CC Sabathia for how many years and how much money. Pretty soon, he's another one of those big pitchers that I think at some point his weight's gonna become a problem for him, and he's gonna be getting paid by the Yankees long after he quits playing baseball.
And this is the post-steroid and HGH era, so they aren't going to come back from these injuries like they did before and be able to perform at that top thing like Clemens did and some of these other guys. And the guy that the Rangers signed, I can't even pronounce his name, but I heard they had to pay the Japanese team like $51 million just to get the right, to sign him to $70 million?
Yeah, just to negotiate for him.
So.
But, being that, we mentioned the HGH and the steroid era, the National League MVP last year, Ryan Braun, allegedly tested positive for
synthetic testosterone.
An inordinately high testosterone level.
Synthetic.
And I am interested to find out how that appeal goes, because he's claiming that he wasn't guilty, and and it's being appealed, and I'm interested to see how that pans out, because if it does come out that that he's gonna suffer a 50-game suspension, and that's gonna hit him in the pocketbook pretty good, because that's 50 games with no pay, and you look about what a baseball player makes, and and it's almost a third of his salary for that year. That's gonna be a pretty heavy hit, and I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Well, maybe we won't be able to afford any more of that synthetic testosterone if they take $50 million away from them or whatever.
Well,
it may not be that expensive.
Al, were you trying to indicate that you thought Roger Clemens did steroids?
It seemed to be that.
You got to check the background here, see if I'm on the right show, because I've heard that on other shows before.
I've thought that for years, before I knew you. I had some opinions before I met you in October and been on the show with you. There's a lot of them that are suspect because, like I described, how you have creatine in your locker that you're reaching for that, the creatine and all these healthy type supplements. So, but yes, I did say that.
Oh, okay, just checking. Just wanted to make sure.
Why don't you tell us what you really think about that?
About Roger Clemens?
Yes.
I think he's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I might have been the other one, but I can't afford steroids, and to be honest, don't really know where to find them. But I can attest to people, to even the viewers out there, that just because you put on weight fast doesn't mean you're doing steroids, because I never did, and I put on weight all the time.
And as we wrap up a little bit, do we have any Super Bowl predictions? I guess we can do it next week if you guys aren't comfortable with your picks this week.
No, not my money's on the Giants.
Giants.
I believe Eli's going to win, and then I think it's going to be another game similar to the ones that were played this past Sunday.
I got the Giants not because of Eli, but the defense.
New England. Just so I don't pick with you guys.
Okay, New England.
Somebody's going to be right.
Well, I was going to go with New England too, but I know Al can't be right. But then neither can Jim. Wow, this is tough.
Mike, I'll take my pick back.
No,
I
that's
just
okay.
did it. I just did it because I knew what you were going to pick.
I don't know. For me, it's a hard call to make. I think it's going to be a very good Super Bowl. I would probably go with New England just because I think Tom Brady's a winning quarterback. And well, they have there's a little bit of payback involved with this one. The Giants stopped them from their undefeated season, stopped them in their last Super Bowl, I
thought you picked New England because you and I did a show with Gronkowski when he was in high school.
Did that? We did that. Is he going to play? He got high ankle
He
sprain.
come back in the game.
I know he came back in the game.
Yeah,
but
he claims
those get worse during the week, though.
unequivocally that he will be playing. He is in a boot this week, but he says that you can count on him being there. He will be playing.
Urlacher will shoot him up.
Not against Heinz Ward's hyperbaric chamber, right?
Is that the one he got from Michael Jackson?
Yeah. They get that oxygen in their body, and his high ankle sprain will be fine. That's what they'll have to do there. That'll be our inside tip there.
I think if I was a professional football player and my team was going to the Super Bowl, I don't think you could hurt me bad enough to keep me out of the game.
Unless you're Emmanuel Sanders from the Steelers.
Well,
Pouncey.
Marquise
feels
Pouncey.
a little funny. Yeah.
Marquise Pouncey.
Well, that's the Steelers' fault. Pouncey should have played because that was the Super Bowl. He got an identical twin that was at the Super Bowl that was going to be a first-round choice. Put him in the game. You can't tell them two apart, man. I'd have had a Pouncey in there, brother.
Why aren't you in charge of that? You could have been the Pouncey brother agent there. That's a great point.
I'll tell you, I told you before. I mean, that there are teams that are looking for head coaches. I don't think they could do much better than hiring Smoking Jim Frazier to coach the Indianapolis Colts, or some of these other teams, maybe even the
Tampa Bay
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Did he say Steelers?
He's dressed for it. Look,
That's it.
That's his private stock. There's no Steeler gear on him today.
Now, anyway, we covered a lot of stuff this week. Any closing thoughts, Al?
Mike, I have one thing for you. Since you're a political type of guy, maybe you'll appreciate this. Tim Thomas from the Boston Bruins, everybody knows him as the goaltender on the Stanley Cup champs. Because of the ideology of the government, he disagrees with who's in office, and he even has a "Don't Tread on Me" on his mask. He refused to go and accept the presidential visit there. He didn't pull a James Harrison. He just said it's against his beliefs. He doesn't agree with the growing government. So that's my last thought on the show here today.
And for namesake, Chip Kelly turned down the Tampa Bay job, the Oregon coach, to get more money from Oregon probably. But I thought it was a good move by Chip Kelly, staying in Oregon and not going to Tampa Bay and being a washout.
Well, I thought it was a good move talking to Tampa Bay because, like you said, Oregon probably came up out of their wallet a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And once again, Kelly was going to have to go down there and coach underpaid players because there is no way Tampa Bay is paying their players as much as Oregon's paying theirs.
Yeah.
The only school that recruits that pays players more than Oregon is Gateway.
Oregon's backed by the
Gateway High
Nike
School?
owner, right?
Yeah.
Chip?
Any closing thoughts? I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl this year. I think one of the biggest wastes of time that the NFL has anything to do with is going to be happening this week. And, they got the Pro Bowl coming up. And, if there's nothing better to fall asleep to on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, I'll put that on, and that will certainly put me to sleep.
Is Tebow going to do his commercial again this year at the Super Bowl?
I haven't heard
Uh-huh.
his mother.
And because Terrell Suggs chose to sit out the Pro Bowl, one of your favorite whipping boys, Al, is going to the Pro Bowl. James Harrison will be sitting up on Sunday.
I like James Harrison.
Yeah, I don't know why Terrell Suggs decided to sit out the Pro Bowl. I really don't know why he decided to sit out last weekend because Baltimore might have won if he'd have shown up. I'll say one thing for the Super Bowl, even though the Steelers aren't in it, Chip's always put on a great Super Bowl party. Mm-hmm. If you can find him, maybe he'll invite you. But
my wife's an awesome cook.
we have a lot of fun up here, and we go through a lot of different opinions, and some of it's entertainment, some of it's our actual opinions on stuff. Again, I would like to send out our condolences as a group to Joe Paterno's family and friends, and we're looking forward to seeing all you again next week. Have a good week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.